In this video, we will be adding and subtracting vectors, both algebraically and graphically, including vectors that are being multiplied by scalars. When you multiply a vector by a number, the number is called a scalar. So let's start with part A, u plus v. And I think I will do the graphical part first. So if I'm going to do u plus v, I'm going to start with vector u, 2, 1. I'm going to graph this one in standard position. So starting from the origin, 2, 1 would be like this, right 2, up 1. Whoops, I erased it. That was kind of dumb. Let me do that again. 2, 1, right 2, up 1. This time, let me not use an eraser. But I would like to turn this blue. So that's vector u. Now I'm going to graph vector v, 1, 3. When you're adding, you should start the second vector where the last vector left off. So I'm going to start from the terminal point of vector u, and now I will go right 1 and up 3, because 1, 3. And I'm going to make this vector pink. Okay, so here I have vector u plus vector v. Now the solution, the resultant vector, for addition you go from the beginning of the first vector to the end of the last vector. And I like to make my resultant vectors green. Okay, so that's how you illustrate it. I'm just going to pause the video and label it. Now let's go ahead and do it algebraically. If I want to do u plus v, here's vector u plus vector v. I will just add the corresponding components. So that's going to give me 3, 4. Alright, and notice looking at my green resultant vector, it is indeed over 3 and up 4. So it does match. Now for part B, we're going to subtract u minus v. So again, let's start by graphing vector u, which is 2, 1. So in standard position, I'm going to go over 2, up 1, and I'm going to make it blue. Now when you subtract, one method is to put both vectors in standard position. So that's what I'm going to do. Vector v, standard position, so from the origin, and I'm going to go right 1, up 3. So that would be right here. I'll make this one pink. Okay, so this blue is vector u, and the pink is vector v. When you're subtracting, you can just put them both in standard position. Now, when you're subtracting, the resultant vector, the solution, goes from terminal point to terminal point. But you have to be careful of the order. If I want to do vector u minus vector v, I need to draw from vector v to vector u. So it's the reverse of the way it's written. So I am going to draw my resultant vector from vector v to vector u, from terminal point to terminal point. And I like to make my resultant vectors green. Alright, so this is what it's going to look like. I'm just going to pause the video and label this. So there you go. And now algebraically we will just subtract the corresponding components. So 2 minus 1 is 1. 1 minus 3 is negative 2. So vector u minus v should be 1 comma negative 2. So let's check our answer that we got graphically, and it does in fact go right 1 and down 2. 1, negative 2. So it works. For part C, we will do 2u minus 3v. Let's start by building 2u. In fact, let's start with just u, 2 comma 1. So the vector 2 comma 1 in standard position is going to be over 2 and up 1. Let's go ahead and make it blue. Okay, so this is vector u. But we want 2u. So we want this to be twice as long but in the same direction. So I'm going to copy it, Control C, and then I'll just click away and then paste, Control V. So now I've got another one. And now we'll just put these end to end. It's giving me a tiny bit of trouble today. Okay. Alright, so that is 2u. Now I'm going to go ahead and build 3v, starting with v. Now remember, when you subtract, the thing to do is put both vectors in standard position. So whenever I subtract, I start both vectors from the origin. Vector v is the vector 1 comma 3. So starting from the origin, that would be right 1 and up 3. So that would be just like that. I'm going to make vector v pink. Control C, I just copied it. Now Control V, I just pasted it. Okay, so now I've got 2 of them. But I want 3v. So I'm going to paste again. Alright, now I've got 3. And that's what I needed. So now I have 2u and I have 3v. In order to subtract, you draw the resultant vector from terminal point to terminal point across the ends like this. However, the order is very, very important. If I want to subtract vector 2u minus 3v, then I need to draw from, now watch how I switch these around. I'm going to draw from 3v to 2u. Alright, you draw in the opposite direction from the way the problem is written. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my resultant vector from 3v to 2u. Terminal point to terminal point. And I always make my resultant vectors green. Okay, and that's it. So this is the final answer. I'm going to go ahead and do the algebraic method now. So if I multiply u by 2, that's going to give me 4 comma 2. Now I'm going to put a little plus right here. Whenever you subtract, it's the same thing as adding a negative number. So I'm going to multiply this vector by negative 3, and then I'm just going to add. So if I multiply by negative 3, I get negative 3 comma negative 9. And now I can just add my corresponding components. So 4 and negative 3, that's 1. 2 and negative 9, that's negative 7. So this should be the final answer. Now let's compare that to what we got when we did it graphically. from initial point to terminal point, we would go right 1 and down 7, which matches exactly what we have here. Okay, so we have problem number 2. Vector u is 2, 3, and vector v is 4, 0. First, we need to find u plus v. Let's do it graphically first. Starting with vector u, which is 2, 3. In standard position, that's right 2 and up 3. So this is vector u. I'm going to make it blue. Okay, so there's vector u. Now, when you're adding, you should start the second vector where the first vector ended. So I'm going to do vector v, which is 4, 0, but I'm going to start it from the terminal point of vector u. 4, 0 means to the right 4 and up nothing. So it's just a horizontal. I'm going to make this second vector pink. So these are the two vectors that I'm trying to add. Now when you're adding, the resultant vector is going to go from the initial point of the first vector to the terminal point of the second vector. So my resultant vector should look like this. And I'm going to make it green, but I dropped it by accident. Okay, so this green vector is the vector u plus v. Now let's go ahead and do it algebraically. So if all I have to do is add the corresponding coordinates, components. So I've got 2 plus 4 is 6, and then 3 plus 0 is 3. So this should be vector u plus v. Now let's compare that to what we got graphically. Look at the green resultant vector. It is in fact over 6 and up 3, just like we thought. Next we will do vector u minus v. Now remember, when you subtract, one way to do it is to draw both vectors from the origin. In other words, draw both vectors in standard position. Let's start with vector u, 2, 3. So from the origin, that's over 2 and up 3. So this is vector u, except I am going to make it blue. Alright, so there's vector u. Now let's do vector v, which is 4, 0. And because we're subtracting, I'm going to also start it from the origin as well. So vector v is 4, 0, which means go over 4 to the right and go up nothing. So it's just going to be horizontal. I'm going to make this one pink. Alright, so I have vector u and I have vector v. When you subtract, the resultant vector will extend from terminal point to terminal point across the ends of the vectors like this. But the direction is very important. If I want to do vector u minus vector v, then what I need to do is draw from vector v to vector u. See how it is the opposite from the way that it's written. So that's what I'm going to do now. And I'm going to draw my resultant vector from vector v to vector u. So vector v to vector u. And I always make my resultant vectors green. Alright, so this should be vector u minus v. Now let's go ahead and do it algebraically and then check our answer. So algebraically, all I need to do is subtract the corresponding components. So 2 minus 4, that's negative 2. And 3 minus 0 is 3. So the vector u minus v should be negative 2, comma 3. So starting from the initial point, look at this green vector. Notice that it goes left 2 and up 3, just like we thought algebraically. Okay, now let's go ahead and do 2u minus 3v. Now it's time to do 2u minus 3v. Let's start with 2u, which means we actually need to start with vector u, 2 comma 3. So I'm going to go ahead and start in standard position and go right 2 and up 3. This is vector u, which I will color blue. But we want 2u. This is vector u, but we want 2u. So I'm going to copy it, Control C. I'm going to click way out here, and I'm going to paste it, Control V. Alright, so now I can move it back into place, and now I have 2u instead of just u. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and do 3v. Because I'm subtracting, I should start from the origin again. I'm going to draw 3v, but I'm going to put it in standard position. So, vector v is 4 comma 0. So that means to the right 4 and up nothing. Okay, I'm going to make this pink. Alright, so this is vector v. But we want 3v. So what I need to do is, I'm going to select this again. Hold on. I shouldn't let it go in the first place. Control C. I copied it into memory. I'm going to click way out here somewhere. Control V. Pasted it. Okay, now I've got 2v. I'm going to click out here again. Control V again. I pasted it. Now I've got 3v. And 3v is what I needed. So now I've got 2u and I've got 3v. So when you're subtracting, you draw the resultant vector from terminal point to terminal point. Let's be careful about the order. If I want to do 2u minus 3v, then when I draw it, I'm going to draw from 3v to 2u. I go in the reverse order from what is written. So I'm going to draw from 3v to 2u, from terminal point to terminal point. And I will make my resultant vector green, as I always do. Thank you very much. And there you have it. Okay, now let's go ahead and do it algebraically and check our answer. So multiplying by 2, I would get 4 comma 6. Now look, I'm going to sneak a little plus in here. Whenever I subtract, I go ahead and add the negative. That way, it makes it more obvious to me that I am multiplying by negative 3 in the second vector. So multiplying by negative 3, that's going to give me negative 12 comma 0. Now I can add the corresponding components, and that's going to give me negative 8 comma 6. So this should be the vector 2u minus 3v. Now let's compare that to what we have here. starting from the initial point of this green resultant vector, notice that it goes left 8 and up 6. So it matches what we got algebraically. Alright, that's going to do it for this video. We have more problems to do on the next video.